I didn't know Fake Mink could form sentences. Apparently he can. Actually, I mean, if you look at the guy's lyrics, it's pretty clear he can form sentences, but let's talk about the London savior himself, who is going to be dropping a new album very soon, which I kind of, reviewed a little kind of project, smaller project EP or something that he's like kind of prefacing this new music era with, which I thought had, some decent moments on it. But Fake Mink has been in the midst of this very kind of long, slow album rollout. And a part of that has been a performance that he did recently at Rolling Loud Miami. Dude was on stage. His show was plastered all over the internet. I will say, broadly speaking, though, I think a lot of the Rolling Loud sets, as far as the clips that were hitting the internet are concerned, looked kind of bad. I think a lot of the production was terrible. I think a lot of the board mixes and audio were super fucking bad. I feel like the production teams did a lot of the artists super dirty, honestly. There weren't a whole lot of sets as far as the clips are concerned that sounded all that good. I have no doubt that like actually being there on the ground, it was like a pretty hype experience, but like actually just like kind of watching the clips on the internet, it all looked pretty bad. And Fake Mink's set was one of many that was getting like roasted all across the internet pretty mercilessly. I mean, I will say, even though I am trying to be charitable here, it did include clips like this over here. Whatever the hell he thinks that, whatever he thinks this is, it included this, as well as like him running out onto the stage with a designer bag and looking very awkward while doing so. I mean, I wouldn't say it was like the worst set I saw clips of from this past weekend. By far, it was not the worst set, but I think given the outsized attention and anticipation that a lot of people have for this new Fake Mink record and the pedestal kind of people put him on as like, one of the biggest, if not the biggest and most important like new rapper out there from the UK right now, who's like really making a lot of noise. I mean, by contrast, you could say the SD Kid set looked a lot cooler. Are those guys in banana costumes? Whatever. Yeah, he's just doing the Robot Man and the Frankenstein a little bit, doing a little Frankenstein action. So anyway, Fake Mink apparently is just all too aware of just how much negativity there was around his set at Rolling Loud. And as a result, he has taken to Twitter to write a whole ass essay and a half. This is not even the only tweet he has posted about the negative reception to this set. Dude wrote and posted a whole essay about people not liking his set. And we are going to go through it because I feel like this is an insane way to responding to people not liking, your set. And look, this is not like a blanket criticism of any artist or any person online who responds or doesn't respond to any, bit of criticism. Some criticism is constructive, some isn't. But I've never seen somebody take to Twitter like this. Not even because people are tearing apart a new song or an album or a project or something like that. Like a single performance at a festival where famously a lot of bad sets happen every year. It's almost like with each new Rolling Loud festival, there's like, a clip farming legion of people who are like looking for the worst moments and, like most cringe bits of performances from the whole weekend and trying to post them to the internet for, attention and traffic and slop short content, which is just how the internet works now. But like nobody was sort of coming to the internet to defend their set in the way Fake Mink has here, which is why we're going to read this over and see what he says. Hello. All of the anger around me lately has been fascinating to watch, which it's funny that he kind of frames it as anger. While I have seen some negative reactions, like the idea that people are angry, like they're pissed at you, It was just a set maybe some people didn't like. Watching people with the musical imagination of drywall explain performance to me, world building to me, tension to me, when every single thing I do is intentional. Every moment is intentional. Every uncomfortable moment is intentional. Some of you are confusing discomfort with bad art, and history has made a lot of people look unbelievably stupid for making that mistake too early. But I forgive you. I understand. This makes his set sound like it was awkward and uncomfortable on purpose as a means of some kind of like performance art piece, which like, yeah, is this statement and the way that it's reading right now, if it is reading in a negative way to you, is that intentional? How deep does fakemink fucking with our minds here go? We're just going to have to see. Is this a part of the performance art? I know this is difficult for some of you because the performance was never designed to entertain people who think subtlety is a technical issue. Subtlety? Was that the problem? The level of confidence people have while misunderstanding something in real time is honestly incredible, but I forgive you. I understand. Is there something to be said about the quickness with which people will go out of their way on the internet to hate something based off of, you know, again, like some viral clip farm posting kind of shit? Because there were a lot of sets that I saw being posted and just torn the fuck apart and looked like maybe the worst part of the set when maybe there were other parts of the set that were better, or maybe it potentially sounded better in person, because while maybe it sounded like shit when I was seeing, you know, a single clip, but it looked like the crowd was going crazy for it, you know? Are people quick to react to certain bits of video out of context like that? For sure. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. But the idea that like people are seeing technical issues that are actually subtlety, and you're going to come at them with this energy of like, you're just a dumb, ignorant fuck, but I forgive you, like Jesus did. What I've realized lately is that a lot of you do not actually hate is that a lot of you do not actually hate young bulls, ambition, experimentation, genius, or disruption? Do not? A lot of you do not actually hate? You hate the emotional experience of encountering something before your brain has received social permission to understand it. If enough people clap first, suddenly you always got it. But being early requires a kind of mental independence most of the internet fundamentally does not possess, which is fine. I forgive you. I understand. Okay, wait, time. There are moments when it comes to art and popular culture where I have felt this way and have been proven to be correct when I have liked something and have been questioned on it, and then maybe 5-6 months later down the road, people fucking love it or think it's amazing, or it's finally catching on the internet. You know, there have been moments where I've experienced that too. You know, it's like there are certain records like MIA's Maya, for example, which when I first heard it, I hated that album and I didn't get it and I didn't understand it. But with the way a lot of like underground hip hop and electronic music had gone on to evolve over the next several years, like that record actually kind of set the groundwork for some glitch hop and industrial hip hop stuff that came immediately after. You know, it's true. Sometimes certain things need to get a little more established artistically in order for there to be widespread acceptance and understanding of a certain idea or sound or trend. But like, was there anything about fakemink's set that was like so avant-garde and ahead of the curve that people just were not getting it and just understanding it? Like, he just seemed to be kind of casually jumping around and being silly and being energetic and just kind of being a little goofy and unserious in the way that a lot of people were over the course of that weekend with, you know, different performances on the stage. I didn't see fakemink as like, oh man, this guy's really on something nobody else is. Like, he's on a completely different wavelength that, you know, people are just unable to comprehend right now. Like, I didn't get that sense at all. No, this is like kind of a massive crash out. It's just a very well worded, pretentious crash out. And that's kind of the separator here. I've made peace with the fact that some minds are decorative. I know you want reassurance. I know you want the feeling of immediately understanding something the first time you see it so you can feel intelligent without having to evolve at all. So when something genuinely foreign appears in front of you, something too sharp, too alive, too unfamiliar to fit inside the little templates you use to process art, you call it terrible because confusion is easier to admit than limitation? What the fuck? And that's okay. I forgive you. I understand. Like, I personally, give fakemink whatever artistic license he feels like he needs to have to create whatever kind of music he wants to create. Even if I disagree or don't see as much in it, if he tells me on a personal level, coming from a personal place, the song is all about, I don't know, some kind of super deep personal experience that he expounds upon and so on and so forth. I mean, who am I to deny that, okay, the song isn't inspired by that or doesn't go back to that in some kind of way? Again, no matter how bad I personally feel like an experience of a song is, and as valid as I feel like death of the author can be as an argument when it comes to interpreting and appreciating art, someone's experience and how they put it in their art is their experience and how they're putting it in their art. You can take it at face value in some ways. But with that being said, the way this man is measuring and sort of viewing his own performance here and what his art does and where it stands, not for nothing. And I feel like this is a very kind of pervasive feeling in the underground currently. And it's very obnoxious. It's very annoying. A lot of these dudes who are into this hyper distorted version of SoundCloud rap, that's very abrasive and it's very harsh, love to come to you and act like, yeah, the only reason you don't like it is because you don't get it, man. You don't get it. When in reality, a lot of the production and a lot of the sounds that you're playing with have been pretty well established in underground hip hop circles for the past 10 years. The only major difference being a lot of the flows that you guys are doing and kind of ad libs are inspired by artists like Cardi, and you're just maxing out the fucking mixes on all these songs. So they're distorted and abrasive and harsh as fuck, which is fine. That's artistic evolution. That's the way sounds can change and grow depending on where artists and audiences take them, who's creating what, who's demanding what. But this is not a brand new, nobody ever fucking thought of it before. This came completely out of nowhere. Maybe it all seems to you like that because you're 12 and you just started listening to music now. But for the rest of us who have been paying attention, the evolution of these sounds and where it came from is very clear and it's very obvious. You're not doing an avant-garde Laurie Anderson live stage show performance art piece. You're not even doing a Saul Williams slam poetry set. So to act like what you're on is just so just beyond anybody's comprehension, or at least beyond the comprehension of your average Rolling Loud fan, when you're literally there on stage among your peers and among your contemporaries, many of who you share crossover audience with, and everybody's vibing to everybody else's set. That is, unless somebody happens to have a bad performance. If anything, that arena, that area is the festival where fakemink is most likely to be received well. That is where he is most likely to receive a reaction from a crowd that is very positive. That is, unless he does something during that performance the audience doesn't like. He's not a rage rapper, but he has a lot of crossover audience appeal with people in that lane. Are you going to tell me this guy is no crossover audience with SD Kid? If there's nobody else at Rolling Loud who might be into Osama Sun, but might like fakemink too. I mean, I know a lot of these artists have their own crowds and their own audiences, but a lot of these crowds are not just sort of mutually exclusively only listening to 2 or 3 artists on this bill. I understand that some of your entire understanding of music begins and ends with whether or not you can nod to it immediately, which like Fake Mink's music, as far as the production goes, can be pretty catchy. Like it's music you can certainly nod to. I genuinely underestimated how threatening it would feel for some of you to watch somebody become better than your favorite artist in real time. That's my fault? Who is he even talking about? Fake Mink's opinion here is really that like my performance was too good. I was kind of cut. Okay, now I feel like we're at like a DEFCON 1 level of bullshit. His opinion is that my performance was too good and you guys are mad at me for being better than your favorite artist. That's the reason that you didn't like my set, because internally you're like, I don't want to see this guy be better than my favorite. I hate him. It's like, what the fuck? Are you insane? That's why you guys hate my reviews sometimes, because I'm better than your favorite reviewer. And that's on me. You know, it's like my opinions are just so much better than other opinions and better than your opinions too. And that's why you guys, you're like, I'm so mad this guy's opinions are better than mine. That's why I have to disagree with him. I thank you, Fake Mink, for laying it out. Now I have a way to explain when people are mad at me on the internet. There's almost a grief process to it. Yeah, people are suffering like ego death for their own music taste because you made music that was too good. You gotta be, this is insane. I read the first few paragraphs of this and it was already crazy, but I didn't go this deep. Holy fucking shit. Yeah, like somebody's going through the 7 stages of grief because your music was too good. Denial. Yeah, oh my God, I did not, I swear I didn't read ahead. Denial, then anger, jokes, insults, fake concern, then eventually acceptance once enough time passes and your favorite artist starts borrowing from the same thing that you swore you hated 6 months earlier. Then suddenly people begin describing the influence retroactively like they weren't laughing 2 business quarters ago. But I forgive you. I understand. Wow. This was not a response to my Rolling Loud performance. This was a response to people who generally dislike my music. Bro, like the only negativity around you on the timeline over the past week has been the Rolling Loud performance. What is this? This is not about the thing that it's actually like, what? I forgive you. I understand. I don't take any of it personally because the exact thing happens every single time culture encounters somebody operating too far ahead. And I'm not saying any of this from insecurity either. No, why would you? Which I know makes people even more uncomfortable. I genuinely believe I am one of the most important artists alive right now, not will be. So he is, not will be, he is currently. And I know the problem isn't that I think that. The problem is that somewhere underneath all of the outrage, a lot of you, man, can feel why I think it. So I will forgive you. I understand. I know some of you desperately want this to be a joke because it would make the whole thing easier to dismiss. Unfortunately, I mean every word. Being hated this loudly while refusing to become more normal is one of the strongest indicators I've ever seen that I'm doing something correct. Mediocrity does not create this level of emotional instability in strangers. Nobody has ever lost sleep over somebody being decent. So I'll continue watching people with the attention span of fruit flies try to process something that was never made for instant approval in the first place. I forgive you. I understand. Not everybody is built for revelation. Wow. This is crazy. This is insane. And again, I feel like Fake Mink has made pretty decent music, has made pretty good music. I think there's some bangers on his, recent little Tone Setter EP mini project that he came out with. There's certainly something to London Savior as well. Like I get and I understand like, the hype, not in like a literal sense, but it's like I see legitimacy in why he is popular. I see why he's getting the buzz that he is because he has a sound. He's got a look. He's got something distinct that is recognizable in, sort of like the broader, music scene right now. But like God, that doesn't mean you're like God's gift to music. Holy shit. Why do all the people who idolize Kanye act like him? When it comes to loving Kanye, I think there's a bit of a column A and there's a column B. I feel, and nobody's exclusively in one column. And a lot of people I feel like fall on a spectrum. But I feel like one side of being a Kanye fan, one side of the spectrum is loving his music and just really caring about what he contributes and what he accomplishes just purely in a musical sense. And I would like to feel like that's, where I mostly land. I feel like I mostly land over there. I feel like, to the degree that I do still currently love and appreciate Kanye as an artist, it has mostly, if not purely, to do with his music. And then the other side of the spectrum is I feel like there's a lot of people who love Kanye, and this is not to say they don't appreciate him for his music at all. I feel like a great deal of these people do. It's just not exclusively about the music. People sort of see themselves in him because of his personality flaws. And they also sort of like see certain flaws and temptations in themselves, especially when it comes to a lot of the unhinged shit that he says and does, be it either correct or incorrect. It's really sort of the lack of filter and the antics and the inability to control himself, but still sort of like, in a Teflon Don sort of way, like survive through all the hate and all the negativity that comes as a result of him not being sort of methodical and calculated and careful about the way he puts himself out there into the world. I feel like there's a lot of people who, because they're not at a level of talent or success or perceptiveness, artistically speaking, that Ye is at, because they live, relatively normal, boring, average lives. Like they actually have to keep those inside thoughts inside, and they sort of idolize him and look to him or look up to him or see something exciting in him because they think like, man, that's how I would love to fucking operate if I didn't need to worry about what anybody thought about what I thought or said. While again, on some level, I believe that many of these people also enjoy and appreciate his music too, there is a good degree of people that land further on that side of the spectrum that I think more appreciate or care about Kanye for what they sort of feel from him in terms of like validation for all of their worst wants, desires, proclivities, tendencies, because they sort of like see themselves kind of succeeding through their temptations to engage in similar shit. They sort of see themselves in him kind of like going through that trauma and drama with all of that and sort of like project themselves onto it and, get a cortisol, or not a cortisol, but like a dopamine spike off of seeing that shit. I think the reason that you have a lot of people who sort of like, emulate these behaviors is because like what they really see in Kanye, what they sort of get most excited about with him is sort of the way he puts himself out there into the world. And I understand and appreciate that there is like an appeal in the way that he does that. And, it's almost gotten to a point in his music where it's a little, inseparable on, plenty of tracks from Life of Pablo, which I love. It's plenty of tracks from Kids See Ghosts that I love. Those elements, those kind of personality flaws and character traits are definitely like inseparable from how good the music is. But I feel like there's people who are sort of like appreciating the latter of these two sides of the spectrum that I've brought up here a little bit more than the former, just merely the music side. Yes, it is kind of like a cult of personality thing. Has cult of personality eclipsed his music? I think it depends on the kind of fan that you are of his. For me, no, there's still plenty of older Kanye records that I love to death. And, I don't personally feel like, what I feel about his personality now and, being charitable, he is clearly trying to get on a better path now, which I think is good. I think is a positive thing. But, people sort of like see that and they want to be able to talk about themselves in that way and sort of celebrate their own wins and, sort of their own, sort of like creative endeavors in that same way. When, the truth is like, at the point in time in Kanye's career when he was like really going hard with that and like really sort of like, I would say like overestimating certain things about his abilities and accomplishments, he had actually objectively already accomplished so fucking much and done so much to kind of like change the face of popular music and hip hop at, point blank period. Like unless you find yourself in a place where you've done something similar, maybe you should just either shut the fuck up or wait, for that to actually happen before you start saying, well, people hate me because I'm just too good, and they suffer ego death because of how amazing I am, and they're just sort of like seething with hatred and jealousy, just the sight of seeing me perform, because they don't get it, and they're just angry at how talented and amazing I am. Thank you very much for watching. Over here next to my head, another video you can check out. Hit that up, or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, fake mink, forever.